This is Eyewitness News up close.
A big week in Washington. Testimony on Capitol Hill. The FBI director denying Trump Tower was wiretapped under his watch. Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch getting grilled in the Senate. This morning, we talk with a leader in the fight against the Trump administration, Senator Chuck Schumer. Also this morning, March is Brain Injury Awareness Month. 3.5 million Americans sustain a brain injury every year, and we will talk about the challenges of recovering from a brain injury. Challenges that often involve retraining the brain and learning the basics of everyday living all over again. And good morning and welcome to Up Close. I'm Diana Williams in for Bill Ritter. In just a few minutes, we're going to talk to experts and patients who are recovering from traumatic brain injuries. This is a topic that in the last 18 months, I have learned a great deal about. In June of 2015, my son Nat, who was an Air Force pilot, was on his motorcycle headed to Tyndall Air Force Base down in Florida when he was hit by an airman on the base. Many thought Nat would never make it. Among his many injuries, he suffered severe trauma to his brain, and doctors offered a grim outlook for his recovery. Well, thankfully, he's proving them all wrong. Since the accident, I've shared our family's TBI journey on Facebook in the hope of helping others. And given that this is Brain Injury Awareness Month, we're going to spend some time this morning talking to the experts and also to patients about our brains and the healing process. But first, politics in Washington. I talked to U.S. Senator Charles Schumer, and we started with the U.S. Supreme Court. I asked Senator Schumer why he has decided to vote against the nomination of Judge Neil Gorsuch.
Well, first, it's 60 votes, which we've required of it's called a filibuster, but it simply says you need 60 votes. I've always believed that's the right amount of votes because every candidate should have bipartisan support. And the last 4 judges have each gotten 60 votes, 2 by President Bush, Justices Alito and Roberts, 2 by President Obama, Justices Sotomayor and Kagan. Gorsuch gives me real worry because just about every time he sides with a big business special interest against a individual person who needs help. One example that sticks out, a truck driver's truck broke down outside Chicago, freezing, minus 27 degrees. The cab did not have heat. The company says you have to stay with the truck. But he would have died had he stayed with the truck. He went out, got help, got the truck fixed, no damage done. The company fired him. Judge Gorsuch was the only judge to rule against him out of 8 judges that have had the cases on appeal. This can be repeated over and over again. Yesterday, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that a young fellow on autism should be given help by his school district in Colorado. The only dissenting judge, Judge Gorsuch. So I was open-minded and waited for the hearing.
I was going to say, you have been very open-minded about him. So it seems like a sudden change.
When I saw these things, no, it wasn't sudden. I never said I was for him. I said I'd wait for the hearings and see what it's all about. And when you see that his record is so far over, always siding with special business interests, when there has to be a little bit of mercy and compassion in the courts, and you see case after case that he went against average people in trouble, that was enough for me.
So the White House is saying that you're turning this nomination into, making it partisan, and that this is not good for America, that the American people support this nominee. What do you say?
Well, I'm not sure that's true at all, and the idea of making it partisan, we were not consulted. They didn't say let's pick a nominee like Merrick Garland last year, who had broad Democratic and Republican support in the Senate. They picked somebody who was hard right, chosen by the Federalist Society. If you want it to be bipartisan, that means talking to both sides, not picking the nominee you want and saying, now vote for him.
There's a risk that comes with this, and that is that the rules could change and that Supreme Court nominees could be approved by a simple majority vote instead of that 60 vote that you were referring to a moment ago. That's a risk that you're taking with this, right?
Well, that would be done by Mitch McConnell, and he shouldn't do it, and I hope everyone will tell him.
You say he shouldn't do it, but it is a risk.
He's the man who held, hey, come on, Diana. He's the man who held up Merrick Garland for a year. when that man should have been appointed. So now if he doesn't get his way, he's going to change the rules. That would be very unfair.
But again, is that a risk you're willing to take?
Well, it's up to McConnell. He could change the rules anytime he wants. We didn't. I argued that for Supreme Court, the rules should not be changed when we were in the majority and had the opportunity to change the rules, and we didn't.
By doing this filibuster, you know, filibusters and the raucousness, those are things that we generally think about in the House and in those chambers, not in the Senate. The Senate we think of as kind of taking the high road and being a more congenial group.
Yeah.
Is that changing?
As I mentioned, every one of the last 4 judges has had to meet the 60-vote requirement. Every one. The filibuster and 60 votes are the same thing. Some people call it a filibuster. Some people call it you need 60 votes. All 4. The last 2 presidential nominees of President Bush and the last 2 nominees of President Obama each met a 60-vote requirement. So should Judge Gorsuch. It shouldn't be any different.
You, in the past, have had a pretty good relationship with Donald Trump, now as President Trump. Have you met with him since he was elected, since he actually took office and is in the White House? Have you met with him? Have you had phone conversations, and how have those gone so far?
Well, I have met with him, and I told President Trump the following. I said, you ran as an anti-establishment figure against both the Democratic and Republican establishments, and if you continue to do that when you're president, I told him this while he was president-elect and then again while in the early days of his presidency, if you continue to oppose both the Democratic and Republican establishments, you'll be able to get some good things done. And I'm not going to oppose things like Mitch McConnell did just because the name Trump is on it. But I said, if you go over to the hard right, then you're not going to be a successful president. And that's what he's done. Mulvaney has cut to smithereens all of our programs that benefit New York, education, transportation, anti-terror, in the budget that was proposed. That's not how Donald Trump campaigned. So I'm happy to work with him. But it's got to be somewhere in the middle here, not this sort of hard right agenda that he had.
Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about midterm elections and your strategy going into the midterm elections, because, you know, Democrats lost so many of American states. So, you know, you're kind of the leader when it comes to the strategy of how do you get back those Democrats in those states. And do you have a strategy to do that?
Yes, I do. When you lose an election the way we did, much to everyone's surprise, in last November, you look the election in the eye and you don't blink, Diana. You say, why did we lose? And, you know, it's easy to blame outside factors, but we lost to actually a candidate whose popularity was low. Trump's popularity, even at its height, was 42, 43%, less than half. And I'll tell you why I think we lost and how we're remedying it. We lost because we did not talk to average middle-class people about how we were going to make their lives better. The entire campaign just attacked Donald Trump. That doesn't work. People may want you to hold, I think the public, and certainly in New York, where Trump lost, they want me to hold Trump accountable. But the most important thing is, how are you going to make my life better? So we Democrats are putting together a strong, economic, bold package that's going to help people. It's going to change our trade laws where we get taken advantage of. It's going to make it easier for young people to afford college. It's going to require, we've already called for a big infrastructure building program that would create a large amount of new jobs, construction jobs or good paying jobs, and help us rebuild the infrastructure that, as you've seen throughout New York and throughout the country, has gone down the drain. We're going to call for more competition in certain industries. Why are your cable fees so high? Why are your airline fees so high? Because there's not much competition. So we have a program that I think people will really, really like. and they will see Democrats as a positive party helping the middle class and those trying to get to the middle class. That is our strategy. We're in the process of putting it all together now, and you'll see it all in June or July, and we'll be working on it the next year and a half till the 2018 elections.
Okay. And got to ask you about the budget and where New York City stands, in particular in the budget, because a lot of the counterterrorism funding for the NYPD is affected by this new federal budget. What are you going to do to rectify that? Are you going to be able to get New York City the money that it needs?
Yeah, well, as you know, Diana, I fight for New York regardless of party. And 2 years ago, President Obama proposed cutting $300 million of our anti-terrorism funding. I got that back. I fought hard with Peter King, a Republican, and got it back. Well, we're going to do the same thing, Peter King and I, now that Donald Trump has proposed even a deeper cut, getting rid of the UASI funding. And I think we'll be able to get it back in a strong bipartisan way.
We want to say thanks to Senator Charles Schumer. And coming up, we take a closer look at traumatic brain injuries. Millions of Americans every year suddenly face the daunting challenge of a life-threatening injury and then the long road to recovery. The research and the advances that are dramatically helping people make a comeback after this.
Monday at 5, an emission scandal costing car owners big bucks.
You put your trust in a big corporate name.
So where are their buyback checks?
They owe me $8,000. Now I'm getting the runaround.
7 on your side says enough is enough. Monday at 5 on Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Levante, the Maserati of SUVs, starting at $73,850. Visit MaseratiUSA.com for limited time offers.
It's Empire Today's half-price sale. Get $2,400 of flooring for $1,200, $5,200 for an amazing $2,600. That's half the price of your entire purchase. Shop for carpet, hardwood, tile, vinyl, and laminate right from home and have it professionally installed. Don't miss Empire's half-price sale. Schedule now.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today, shop at our stores on Long Island in Westbury and Comac.
Looking up with a low-rate auto loan from Municipal Credit Union. Call 1-888-4MCU-AUTO or visit nymcu.org today. MCU, celebrating 100 years.
Seriously, what is this place?
It's heaven.
Yeah, muscle heaven. You want to take one for a test drive?
How's the way?
Dodge, Fast and Furious tested and approved. Check out the Journey and Durango during the Fast and Furious sales event. Best in class power for under 30 grand. The Fate of the Furious in theaters April 14th, in dealerships now.
Well-qualified current lessees get a low-mileage lease on the 2017 Dodge Durango all-wheel drive for $249 a month.
Welcome back. As we told you earlier, 3.5 million Americans sustain brain injuries every year, and 12 million Americans live with the impact of traumatic brain injury, or what is often referred to as TBI. The leading causes of TBI: 40% involve falls, 15% are struck by something, 14% involve motor vehicle accidents, and nearly 11% suffer brain injuries in an assault. Joining us this morning are Dr. Nancy Ciaravalati. She is the Director of Neuropsychology and Neuroscience and Traumatic Brain Research at the Kessler Foundation, which is one of the centers of excellence in dealing with brain injury. And then we have Jane Concato, and Jane is a former patient at Kessler. She fractured her skull and was in a coma for 3 weeks after she fell down the stairs in her home in New Jersey. Ladies, good to have you both here this morning.
Thank you for having us.
And Jane, you're doing great, but you were in that coma for 3 weeks. And
yes.
You know, one of the things I think people get confused about is when you're in a coma, you know, you don't just suddenly pop awake one day and say, I'm back. It's more of an emerging process,
Correct.
right? And was that was true for you, right?
Yes, I remember some things mid-coma, and then I would go, I would go back down, and I wouldn't remember anything.
Mm-hmm. And you don't remember the fall at all, do you?
No.
No.
No, which Kessler had told me you're better off not knowing about your injury, not remembering it, because
so you don't have the PTSD that can go along with that memory.
I had a little post-traumatic stress because of the fear of the brain injury and what I had gone through, but I don't have it anymore, thank God.
Length of coma, that can tell you a little bit about the severity of the injury, correct?
The length of coma does tell us about the severity of the injury. However, the severity of the injury is not directly predictive of the outcome that we may expect 5 or 10 years later.
And the reality is, you don't know the outcomes, do you?
The reality is we do not know all of the variables that predict outcome. We're still working very hard to identify them.
That's part of the research that's underway that you are doing right now, and you're involved in a lot of research projects.
Yes.
And one of them involves memory. And I know for you, Jane, it was word memory. It was finding words. It was, you know, and they call that aphasia, the speech language issue that you have after brain injury. That was problematic for you.
Yes.
But your short-term memory is more, project is about retrieving memory and also using imagery to help retrieve that memory, right?
Exactly. The project that we've been working on utilizes specific strategies to help someone learn new information and then remember that information later when they actually need to apply it. So much of what we do in our daily lives is learn new information. We learn new information every day. The typical way we do it is we verbally encode information. Our society is very verbally based. We communicate in words, we think in words, we remember in words. However, there are other areas of your brain that process images. So what we are doing in this training is we're teaching people to take a word, associate it with an image, and now they're using more of their brain. They're dually encoding that information, and that's helping them learn more information and remember it later.
Wow. That's amazing. You had some short-term memory issues. Do you still have some of those issues from time to time?
I really didn't have short-term.
No?
No.
No?
No. I had what was called slow speed of processing.
Okay.
If you were speaking to me, by the time you got to the second sentence,
you couldn't remember the first sentence.
Well, I couldn't understand the first sentence. I was blessed not to have a short-term memory problem.
Did you understand your deficits? Did you understand after the injury what you could not do?
Yeah.
You did?
I did.
But a lot of brain injured don't understand their deficits,
Correct.
right?
There is, generally, there is a lack of awareness. We call it awareness in many people who have are living with a brain injury. One of the treatments that we're actually working on is trying to increase that awareness. That's essential to being able to benefit from rehabilitation. The better your awareness, the better you'll be able to benefit from all of the strategies that we're trying to use to improve things like memory functioning, processing speed, which Jean referred to a minute ago, working memory.
And Jane, you talk about that word finding. There are actually techniques now that can help with that word finding process, right?
Yes.
How does that work?
So the word finding process is, it's a very specific cognitive process where, so if Jane's having trouble remembering a word, she's trying to pinpoint a very specific word in her vocabulary. If you think about the specific words in our vocabulary, they're within a classification of a larger group of words.
So for instance, here's an example for you. When my son could not remember the word of what is this, he would go, it's a clock that you wear on your wrist.
Exactly.
So you'd come up with a whole...
And he was right.
He was right.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
But we have come up with a shorter word for that, a singular word, right?
Right.
So that's what people with brain injury do. You would come up with a whole phrase when you couldn't remember the word, right?
I would do that.
So they could communicate their point very effectively, and at the same time, as time goes on, that will lessen somewhat over time.
Right.
Somewhat.
We hope.
We hope. How are you doing now? Because this was 13 years ago, but you still have some residual fatigue, for instance.
Fatigue is a great problem, and it does last for a long time. It might last
Very
forever.
common with brain injury.
Right.
Very common.
Right.
And why is that? Do we know?
Well, there are fatigue networks that we're working on identifying in the brain in much of the research that's going on at Kessler Foundation. We're doing imaging work, and within that work, we're fatiguing people intentionally. And as we fatigue them, we're imaging their brain, and we're looking at how the different parts of the brain are functioning. So what we're seeing is that different parts of the brain are more or less active as people become more and more fatigued.
And we're talking about mental fatigue versus physical fatigue.
Correct. And they may suffer from both. And there does seem to be an interaction between mental and physical fatigue, and that's another line of work that we're currently focusing on, is what is that interaction? We have one brain, and that brain has so many resources.
Wow.
So what is, if you have mental fatigue, do you also have physical fatigue, and vice versa? And how do we treat it? Which is really the important question.
You, I know, are very active in the brain awareness community, running support groups, helping other people. It can be a very lonely place when you have a brain injury.
Definitely.
And it's important to you, right, to help people and to help people understand that there are others out there with this, dealing with this.
It's great having a support group. We started the support group, we overtook the support group by a neuropsychologist who could no longer do it. She had young children. And about 2 years after my brain injury, she asked Joe, my husband, can you take over the group? And he quickly said, yes, I will.
And you're getting more and more people all the time.
Oh, yeah, we have a big support group. And I just stood and looked at Joe, and I was like, what? Because it was difficult.
In our last few seconds here, what's the most important thing you think we're going to learn about the brain in the next 10 years?
I think we're going to learn how to treat the symptoms that people are having more effectively. I do. I think we're making strides. A lot of the work at Kessler Foundation is focusing on that, as well as across the country. And I think that we will learn to effectively treat these problems that people are facing.
Because we can fix our broken bones. We can fix so many parts of our bodies. We need to be able to fix the brain, too.
Fix the brain.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. You're one of my heroes for what you do.
Thank you for having me.
You're one of my heroes for what you've been through. So thank you guys so much for everything you do.
You're welcome.
As we all love our brains.
We appreciate your support.
Yeah, we'll be back with more. We're going to talk to the head of the Brain Injury Association of New York after this, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
I'm Joe Torres on Tiempo this morning, recruiting Latinos for the New York State Police, plus a heart health summit specifically targeting Latinos. Hope you join us. Tiempo this morning at 11:30.
Remember when everything you did was for the fun of doing it? BMW sports activity vehicles are the perfect combination of ample space, dynamic power, and sleek design. There truly is an X perfect for every adventure, so you can go wherever the fun takes you. BMW, the ultimate driving machine. Lease a BMW X1, X-Drive 28i for $329 a month.
I had memory foams, I had feather pillows, and I'd always wake up with neck pain. After sleeping on my pillow, I didn't wake up with the headaches, I was more aligned.
I didn't realize the connection between the pillow and sleep. When I switched to my pillow, I got a better night's sleep, and I love it.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of My Pillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs, and it holds that support all night long to take the pressure off your shoulders and keep your neck aligned so you get the best night's sleep of your life.
My Pillow is machine washable and dryable and comes with a 60-day money-back guarantee and an amazing 10-year warranty. Plus, every My Pillow is made in the USA.
I personally guarantee that My Pillow will be the most comfortable pillow you'll ever own. Take advantage of my famous offer and get 2 My Pillow premiums for one low price. Call or go to mypillow.com. Be sure to use the promo code and I'll give you free shipping.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
The Jeep brand presents Great Moments in the Great Outdoors. April 27th, the Wright family learned to live off the land.
Ow.
June 18th, Dave unleashed his inner hamster. August 9th, Brian Jr. looked away from his phone for 3 whole minutes. Find your moment with great deals at the Jeep Spring Clearance event.
Well-qualified current lessees of competitive vehicles get a low-mileage lease on one of these 2017 Jeep vehicles for under $150 a month.
Joining us now, Barry Dane, the board president of the Brain Injury Association of New York State, and Mauricio Blandino. He suffered a subdural hematoma, that is bleeding on the brain, after he fell and hit his head. So, Mauricio, great to have you here. Barry, good to have you as well.
Thank you.
Mauricio, we were talking, and you say that you are now, after your brain injury, adapting to a new you, right?
Yes. It's a new me with new outlooks to life. I'm appreciating life more so. adapting to vestibular issues, problems with my walk at times, things that came
balance
after.
Issues.
Balance issue, correct. I'm always aware of, I'm always on.
Right.
As far as...
But I want to point out that with the help of Achilles, you ran the marathon in 2015.
I did, yes.
So you're working hard.
My biggest achievement ever, even before my accident.
Yeah. So congratulations.
I'm working hard, and I continue to do so.
Yeah.
It's a never-ending task.
Yeah. And your accident in 2011, brain surgery, you had a very severe...
Full bilateral craniotomy, yes.
Yeah. Severe brain injury. What's needed, Barry, for people in this state who have brain injuries?
Dedicated funding. The concept, it's real simple. Individuals with brain injury want the same things you or I do. They want a job, they want meaningful relationships, and a place to live. A lot of those things are lost after a brain injury. The change that an individual goes through is tremendous. They often lose their family members, they lose their home, and they lose their job. And if we as a state and as providers and caregivers can work towards those three things, we'll be in good shape. How we get them the funding and the services is always a challenge.
Yes, and I think the perception is that insurance covers it all.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because
that'd be great.
Unlike a bone or other injuries, the brain takes a really long time to heal. So what does insurance generally cover?
Not much. I think if you have a motor vehicle accident and your insurance is $50,000, that goes away through a helicopter ride to the acute care center. Right? And then a person has to go onto Medicaid, and the state has to support them through those dollars.
And does Medicaid cover long-term intensive rehab?
Yes, but it's intensive rehab. No, Medicaid provides long-term care supports in the community through a traumatic brain injury waiver program, and that's being threatened.
It is, by state funding right
Correct.
now.
Yeah.
Right now. So you're working right now in the state legislature, with state legislators, and trying to get them to recognize the need for this kind of care.
Yeah, and for the individuals to sustain the needed funding for their services over time.
And the other thing, and I know you do this, Mauricio, you go to a support group.
Yes, I do.
You get help, and so there's the need for kind of a community out there of brain injured as well, right?
Yes, and it's important for anyone who sustained a brain injury to find that support. Find your local chapter, find your local support groups. It's important to lift you up. You need that spirit to be energized again, and you'll find it there.
What if you didn't have that community, those support groups out there? You'd be home alone a lot, right?
I'll be home alone a lot, exactly. I have individuals who I could talk to who understand immediately what my situation is. In a few words, they understand what I'm feeling that day, or how I've been coming along, and or we share information about our medical needs or suggestions of doctors among each other.
Do you find that when you're out at the grocery store, or you're out in the community, in the world, that sometimes people don't understand?
Oh, absolutely. I seem to look okay when I approach you, and I could be talking to you and instantly lose my train of thought, or I would lose myself, disoriented issues I have. There's a lot of understanding that needs to be done among other individuals, but normal, I hate the word normal.
And that's part of what Brain Injury Awareness Month is all about, right? Getting the word out.
Absolutely.
That there's a lot of people dealing with brain injury.
Yeah, a lot of New Yorkers, a lot of Americans. It's a social disability, and we don't necessarily see that. As you said, you could look great to me, but as we begin to engage in conversation and begin to engage in activities, things become challenges. Right?
Yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely. And I advocate for the Brain Injury Association. I try to do my share, giving back in terms.
Good for you, because you are doing amazing. Very proud of that. And keep up what you're doing as well, Barry, and we'll see what happens with the state legislature.
Sounds
on this
good.
one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
We're out of time. That's going to do it for this edition of Up Close. If you are interested in learning more about brain injury, I have posted my family's journey with TBI. You can go to my Facebook page, Diana Williams NY. I also have a Facebook Live video with more information about brain injury research. Tiempo with Joe Torres is coming up next. Thank you for watching. I'm Diana Williams. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a good one.
Kudrow and Mark Consuelos next live.